Hello, everyone, and welcome to the course, Introduction to Philosophy. I am your teacher, Dan Toohey. On this video, I just want to say a few things about the course itself, what we'll be doing, what the ambitions are for the course, the kind of readings we'll be doing, and why. There will be another video also in the introductory section of the Blackboard site that will be a practical course tour, which you should also watch today, will just tell you explicitly what you need to do for the course in terms of requirements and how things are set up. But this is just a broad overview of this introduction to philosophy. What is philosophy? That's a great question. The word itself is a Greek word composed of two words, philos, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. So that literally, from the Greek, philosophy is just the love of wisdom. And a philosopher is someone who loves wisdom, or knowledge, or learning, or truth. So it's a rather undefined thing. And historically, philosophy has meant a lot of things. Philosophy is the search for truth, the truth about things at bottom, you might say. The truth about reality, the truth about truth, the truth about what morality is, the truth about what a human being is, the truth about how human beings should organize their social lives, things like that. And philosophy itself is traditionally sort of broken up into different fields or specialties or areas. There is epistemology, which is a philosophy of knowledge. How can we know what we know? There is metaphysics, which is asking the basic question, what is real? What is the fundamental nature of reality? There's moral philosophy. What makes an action good or bad? How do I judge that? Or how do I live if I want to be good? There is philosophy of art, aesthetics. What is the beautiful? What is it that makes a particular piece of art or anything else beautiful? And there's political philosophy. What is it? How are human beings meant to live together in their social lives in terms of organizing government and the state? There's all sorts of different areas of philosophy that won't be a big part of this course, those categories. Although they do, to a certain extent, guide me in the readings that I've chosen for you. But for me, the readings come first. The readings come before the categories. For instance, the first 2 weeks of the course, part one, the individual and reality, could be said to be about metaphysics, about trying to describe what is real, what is the fundamental nature of reality. Part two of the course, rational inquiry, could be, to some extent, about epistemology. How do I know anything? How can I establish knowledge in any way? Part three of the course could be, which is called How Should I Live, could be moral philosophy, and part four could be political philosophy. And they are. That is, they are primarily in those areas. But for me, it's the philosopher and their writing, the particular work that comes first, not the category. As we'll see, perhaps the last four readings of the course have heavy political implications. They're really about politics. And part one of the course is really about the fundamental nature of reality. And part three of the course is really, I guess, about, to some degree, about morality. How should I live? But it's always been my feeling that if you put the categories first, then you lose something in terms of what the author is trying to do. Yes, the author is hitting on a certain area, but it's better to let that develop through the text than to have a preconceived notion of it. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a introduction to philosophy in its different guises. This is an introduction to metaphysics. This is an introduction to morality, to moral philosophy, and political philosophy. But that's along the way. What we primarily focus on are the readings and what they say, and they have all sorts of implications beyond those categories. But we will learn, I think, in this course, a lot about philosophy in its different areas, inevitably. So the course is broken up into four parts. You'll see this. You can see this in the main menu. if you click on these little links, the introductory links, you'll see that it'll bring you to videos in which I give you an overview of the unit of the course, what we're reading, the individual and reality. That's just, you can watch that video. But it is broken up into 4 parts, and each of those parts has text which I think are closely related to each other. We'll start out by reading, I think, about the first 5 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, or the whole thing, the great ancient Hindu work of a lot of things: poetry, religion, but especially for us, metaphysics and philosophy, in which a man is faced with a certain dilemma in his life, which can only be resolved by gaining a better understanding of reality itself, we'll say. On week 2, 20th century writer Aldous Huxley's experience in taking drugs, actually, taking mescaline, psychedelic drug, and how this prompted him to reevaluate the very nature of reality because of his drug experience. It's quite interesting. So I've called that the individual and reality, and watch that video now. I think this overview video to gain a better sense of what I'm getting at in that section. Then we'll move on to part 2, rational inquiry. We'll spend a few weeks really reading Plato, reading 2 complete dialogues, the Meno and the Phaedo, and then spilling over into the next section, an excerpt from Plato's Republic. I wanted to give you a sense of what philosophy does, the search for truth. How do you actually search for truth? There's no better introduction to that than the Platonic dialogues. Then a section, part 3, called How Should I Live?, in which the fundamental question about how one is to order one's life, what it means to live a successful life, what it means to live the good life, is explored by Plato in the Republic. And then, in a different sense, the philosopher Epictetus gives perhaps more practical advice on how to live, which we'll be looking at. And then finally, introduction, or part 4, human nature and the social order, in which we'll be looking at various theories of the state, of government. Essentially, what should government be to reflect what human beings want out of life, which necessitates a certain theory of human nature. That is, what we are determines what sort of communal, civic, political life we should have together as a community of individuals. 4 different takes on that, from Thomas Hobbes and John Locke in the 17th century, Jean-Jacques Rousseau in the 18th century, and then Jean-Paul Sartre in the 20th century is a sort of a particularly modern existential view of that. What you should get at the end of it is just a piece of philosophy, a glimpse into some aspects of philosophy. No 10-week course in philosophy could be absolutely comprehensive and exhaustive. It's not the kind of thing we can do in 10 weeks, but I think it should give you, looking at these works, these great works, these essential works, which are only a selection of the vast works in the history of philosophy that I could give you, but they're really good, and I think they give you a really good sense, if you read them with respect and read them, put the time in to really understand them, a really great introduction to the activity of philosophy, the search for truth, the search for wisdom, and the asking of particular fundamental questions, perhaps questions that we don't ask normally in everyday life, the busy creatures that we are, the sort of contemplative, sort of stepping back. That's what philosophy is. This is stepping back and asking questions about fundamentals, things that are really prime and essential questions about human existence in the world that we don't normally ask because, well, maybe our lives don't really encourage us to do that. But philosophy is about taking that step back and asking whether our assumptions about things, about reality, about how to live, about what government should be, whether they're actually correct. So welcome to the course. It'll be fun. I know it'll be fun because, not because of me, but because of these texts, which are wonderful texts. So if you actually read them, get into them, start thinking about them, writing about them, you will get a lot out of this course.